Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. Today is September 3rd, and the title of our devotional for today is Surprising Love. Let's talk about what it really means to be the hands of Jesus loving people. I'm going to read a passage in John chapter 13, beginning in verse 3 until verse 5, that talks about something surprising that Jesus did when he washed his disciples' feet. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going to God, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. We often think that being a disciple of Jesus is a call to do things that are big and important in the eyes of others. In reality, to be a disciple of Jesus is to be as he is in us day by day and moment by moment. Jesus never looked for the big and important things to do. Jesus looked for ways to surprise people with the reach of God's love. Jesus looked for people around him who needed love, and he touched them. Jesus noticed people with dirty feet because that is where the love of God needed to touch and bring cleansing, surprising love. To wash people's feet is to surprise them with the reach of God's love. As disciples, we are called to do more than imitate the life of Jesus. We are called to surprise people with Jesus' continuing presence in the world, in us, and through us. We are to be his hands on dirty feet, not just our hands on dirty feet. It is literally that we are to be his hands on dirty feet. Have you surprised anyone lately with the touch of Jesus' hands? If not, you may be simply imitating Jesus instead of living Jesus. Surprise someone with the love of Jesus that abides in you today. Look down for dirty feet. Do not look up. The example of Jesus is, to say the least, shocking, surprising, astounding. The way Jesus behaved is not the way we would expect for God to behave among us. So much of what Jesus did is absolutely mind-boggling if we really understand that he is a manifestation, the manifestation of the presence of God with us. What I want to call your attention to today is that there's an entire kind of theological learning and understanding that comes from just watching what Jesus permitted himself to do and the things he did not permit himself to do. As his disciples were living with him during these 3.5 years, they were learning from what he did. That's for sure. They were learning from what he said. We know that already. But one of the things we often do not perceive is what Jesus would not be. What he would not be. We know what he is. He is the light. He is the bread, the daily bread. He is the way, the truth, and life. We know the things that he permitted himself to be, but there were things that Jesus just would not be. He would not be. And I think those things are important for us to get a grip on. I've got 4 of them I'd like to share with you so you can think about these things with Jesus. Because if he would not be these things, then if we are to be his hands, if we are to be his touch, if we are to be his feet, if we are to really live out the idea that it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me, and if we really, really, really believe that we can come to the place where we say, for to me to live is Christ, and we are one with Christ, then there's some things we just cannot be and cooperate with Jesus. And we can make this list looking at his behavior. 4 things that Jesus would not be. Number 1, he would not be a hero with superpowers. He refused to be a hero with superpowers. You remember when he multiplied the fish and the bread and he fed thousands. You remember that the people thought they were in the presence of a superhero, and they wanted to make him their king. There is such an emphasis right now across our planet of our desire that we have that a superhero would arrive and rescue all of us from our enemies and for the things that we can't seem to accomplish as the human race. There is film after film after film where we look to these heroes. There are novels and more novels written about the powerful people who come to the rescue of the weak. If we're not careful, we think, we really need heroes. And Jesus did not accept the title of being a hero. He did not ever use a language that would put him in the category of the superpower hero. No. He was humble. He was meek. He was gentle. He washed feet. He was led to the cross to lay down his life without reacting and using superpowers to get away from what was about to happen to him. He is the complete opposite of what we think of when we think of a hero with superpowers. The power that he used was the power of pure love. And washing feet was a manifestation that he would stay down at the level of human need, not by being different in the sense of more powers that he had to use, but that he would show us that the only power that can resolve the problems is pure love. Another thing, he was never a celebrity. If Jesus was alive today, everybody would have been telling him to get a YouTube channel, to go on Facebook, to become known, and that's how he would really be able to be an influencer. That's the theory of the world. But Jesus would heal people and then say, don't tell anybody. Keep this between you and me. Obviously, people didn't do that because people want to be associated with celebrity. He told them, don't tell anybody, because he knew that the power of celebrity is a power that human beings have a very difficult time using and not being taken up by the people to levels where they are separate from the people. So he wouldn't be a celebrity. So there's two things that I know that in my discipleship that I should avoid. I should avoid trying to be the hero. I should avoid trying to be a celebrity. I also noticed that Jesus never allowed himself to be a victim. A victim. It's interesting how Jesus would speak up in certain moments when somebody was trying to identify him incorrectly. When Jesus was in front of Pilate and he was about to be crucified, Pilate says to Jesus, "Are you not speaking to me? Do you not know that I have power to crucify you and power to release you?" Jesus answered, "You could have no power at all against me unless it had been given you from above. Therefore, the one who delivered me to you has the greater sin." Jesus spoke up there. He said, I'm not a victim. Jesus never one time manifested self-pity. Never one time did he think that the circumstances surrounding him were out of his Father's control. If I'm going to be a disciple and I'm going to walk with Jesus, this idea that I'm a victim needs to be erased from my mind. And I need to understand that the Heavenly Father is orchestrating my circumstances for the goals he has in mind for me. And if someone seems to have power over me, I really need to not become a victim. Not become a victim. It doesn't match Christ in me for me to be a victim. And the last thing is, Jesus was not a protected person. He refused protection that could have been brought to bear on his circumstances. You remember when he was ready to be crucified, again, he was challenged and he looked at his challengers and he said, don't you know that if I wanted to, I could ask my Heavenly Father and he would send legions of angels to protect me. But Jesus did not live in our planet among us as a protected person. I'm not saying that we cannot live with locks on the doors of our houses, or that we cannot have protection so that we can live in a world that's filled with violence, let's say. But when it comes to who we are, and when it comes to who we have living in us, which is Christ in us, we need to understand that there will come moments in our life where we could appeal to God for protection, but we understand that we don't live here to be protected. We live here to love. And when you love, you count on the Father to be the power behind your love, and you leave the protection totally up to Him, and you do not run away from the cross that you need to carry to love others. You know, I really think that we all would do well to go back and read the Gospels and look again at what Jesus refused to be and what Jesus refused to do. Certainly we need to study what he did and what he said, but there's much to be learned by looking at what he refused to be and what he refused to do. Because in our own lives, since he is living in us, we will come to these same issues in our lives. I pray that you'll think about these things with Jesus. If you have a tendency to want to be a hero, be careful. If you have a tendency to want to be a celebrity, be careful. If you have a tendency to always feel like a victim, be careful. If you feel like you need to be a protected person, be careful. Certainly not for me to judge what any of these things are in your life, but it is for me to understand the danger that I would put myself in as a disciple if I insist on being these things, because Jesus never insisted on being these things. God bless you. Think with Jesus about this, and he will give you the right answers. God bless.